I get to do the exciting part, which is to talk about the project. So I'll cut it really, really short. The 4Cs project, I know K is a grand, €1,000. We're talking about 4Cs. Creativity, collaboration, communication, and critical thinking. And they're 4 elements that are really, really important for all of us in our day-to-day practice. I came out of a traditional Irish education system where I wasn't very communicative, I wasn't very collaborative, I definitely wasn't a critical thinker. And I suppose collaborating, not really. I just came out like you're going to do your exams, you're going to go to college, you're going to get a job, you're going to get married, you're going to have kids, that's it. Whereas life has changed dramatically. And I think particularly in the last 2.5 years, where we were all confined in our homes during various elements of pandemic. But this project happened just before lockdown. And it is derived from a number of other projects called the Creative Museum, the Making Museum, and the Creative School, where we were trying to inspire museum professionals to collaborate with makers, thinkers, hackers, designers, and collaborate and upskill. So this has been going on since 2014. And the 4Cs is our way to work with teachers and schools to encourage them to become the 4Cs in part of their practice and the work that they do in schools. But using cultural heritage, science centres, places like the Nikola Tesla Museum or Radionice to support them in the 4Cs in their work and their practice. So cultural spaces are seen as dynamic spaces. And schools for us are quite hard to reach because they don't connect the cultural sector and see it as a space for them to support them in their teaching and learning. And I mentioned the change in the curricula, but also I suppose moving from on-site to online, we're able to engage with people online. So I suppose again, during the pandemic, museums may not have worked online, they would have worked in spaces like this. And for my organisation, the Chester Beatty, we went from around 5 or 6 videos to loads of videos during the pandemic where we were creating online resources for teachers, for adult learners, for children, for families and our communities. But also we're responding to the changing profile, I suppose, of reform in the school system right across Europe as well. And we have 3 outputs, if I can call them that, as part of the project: a competency framework for teachers, educators and children, a reflective practices toolkit used by teachers and educators, an evaluation toolkit, guidelines and recommendations. I won't go into them in depth, but there are outputs, because a lot of projects tend to, I suppose, produce things to do, activities, but we never sit back and reflect and think what worked, what didn't work, what can we improve. So this is, I suppose, a very, very core element of the 4Cs project. And in my own capacity, I'm not a designer, but I started messing around with Canva, and this is one of the first infographics I've ever done in my life. So I was trying to illustrate what the 4Cs outcomes are. So like being here today, we're improving capacity of European teachers and educators. We're getting out there, we're connecting with our local teachers and educators to try and foster and increase creativity in lesson plans, and to also encourage teachers and schools to refer to our local heritage, like Nikola Tesla, for example, and develop skills through creativity and arts. This is our latest updated webpage. I don't know, is Debbie here? She might be running around, but this is an image from Radionice, where they've got families out in the local environment exploring the natural heritage. And you can check out our website. You can check it to see a bit more, find out a bit more information. And I suppose this is something that I refer to over and over again. The key skills in the Irish curriculum is something that we're trying to link in with. and foster. So young people aged around 14, 15 are now being encouraged to become literate, manage themselves, stay well, manage information and thinking, being numerative, being creative, working with others, and communications. That's a huge change. I definitely didn't get this in school. No way. Whereas now, with the whole reform, we're able to mirror aspects of that through the 4Cs project in the way that we engage and collaborate with schools and teachers. And that's it in a nutshell. So, yeah, I'm now wearing another hat. My colleague Joe is out ill. And Debbie, would you know which one is it this one?
Which one?
That one.
Your presentation?
Joe's.
Who knows that?
That one.
That one. So
So,
you
yeah.
want me,
Just to, yeah.
is it also like PowerPoint?
Yeah.
This is so overrated, this PowerPoint. It's the power of the PDF. Yeah? It's this one.
Mm-hmm.
No. Where is the PDF? This one?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. So you have to cover, huh?
You're going to have to forgive me. I've not seen this PowerPoint, so I'm going to wing it. I'm going to be creative, a critical thinker, a collaborator, and a communicator in presenting my colleagues' PowerPoint on the very first output for the 4Cs, which is a competency framework for teachers and educators. It took me quite a while to understand what a competency framework actually means. But it's something that I suppose there are 4 elements to it. Again, those 4Cs. And as a collaborative initiative, as partners, we sat down and we brainstormed about what does that actually mean when we're working with ourselves and with our partners. So we did a kind of brainstorm, and we uploaded our thoughts and feedback through this app. And again, these are terms that, again, I would never use in my day-to-day work, but apparently this is very, very edu-speak in the teaching world, and a competence-oriented learning, a COL. So we're going, and I mentioned my own education in school was very knowledge-based, whereas we're looking at skills now, skill sets, which I mentioned in my previous presentation, those key skills in the school curriculum. Active citizenship, sharing ideas and respecting others' opinion, listening, which again, I didn't get that in school. Whereas young people now are open to debating and discovering and exploring and self-directed learning. And teachers hopefully are the same. And there's this interdisciplinary within the curriculum. So you're linking various subjects and developing transferable skills and the ability to think outside the box. And again, I think when I started in my museum career, I wasn't really good at thinking outside the box. Whereas through all these European projects, I've learned how to be a bit more innovative, be a bit more creative, think outside the box, work with Debbie, work with hackers and makers, which we'd never ever do. So it's just adapting and reflecting. And I suppose creating a supportive learning environment. So, you know, in order to support all these 4Cs, the learning environment is really, really important to foster the 4Cs. I don't know if any of you work in schools or any of you teachers here. Yeah. What's your classroom like? What does it look like? 4 walls, tables, chairs, all facing like here? No. More dynamic. Like that. That's great. That supports a learning environment. That's fantastic. Because again, my class, my school, were tables facing towards the teacher and the blackboard. And if you moved, you were in so much trouble. So that's the difference. So having opportunities for open-ended exploration discussion. And hopefully we'll be able to do that today, particularly in the workshops. Learning to be open-minded and tolerant. And again, when I went to school, I learned about Irish history, Irish identity, nationalism, and that was it, as well as maths, geography, history. But it was very much a Western European centralized education system. I didn't know anything about the outside world. So as an adult, in my later life, I asked loads of questions. What's this? What's that? Why is it this way? Why is it? I would never come out of school like that. Connecting different areas of knowledge and experience. So again, curiosity is really good. It's a really good skill and a really good mindset to think about the world around us. Focusing on outcomes for our audience and creating an environment to support learners' success in everyday life. So it's supporting and celebrating achievements within the classroom and develop problem-solving skills through co-creation and collaboration. That's a really, really important thing as well. And again, I think in the past I've gone, this doesn't work, I can't do it. Now I'm going, this doesn't work, is there a solution? Can we find another way? So that's the competency framework reflected within the 4 Cs. I'm not going to read through that, if that's okay. I don't want to kill you. But we came up with a checklist of what learners need and a checklist of what teachers need. So I mentioned before the learning environment to support the 4 Cs within the learning environment. Having the right resources, having reflective activities where you think and you pause and you think about what is it that happened here in my lesson? What worked, what didn't work? Social skills. If you don't have the social skills, I don't think the 4 Cs is going to happen. Because being able to engage with people is very, very important, and to be able to express and communicate. And then the checklist of what teachers need. Pretty similar, the learning environment. So your school sounds like a great school. I'm sorry, I didn't get to ask the other teacher in the room. Is it the same? Okay, 2 great schools. Okay, fantastic. Great learning environments. And the right resources. And then reflective tools. And facilitation skills. So to be able to facilitate a learning session using all those skills, rather than, right, everyone sit down, read that chapter for 10 minutes in silence, and then I'll ask you loads of questions. That's kind of the traditional way. Whereas with the 4 Cs, hopefully it'll be more discussion, collaboration, communication, and learning and listening to each other. There's a checklist. This is all on the website, by the way, the intellectual output number 1. And the training need analysis. So we're actually analysing what is it that teachers need to support the 4 Cs. And then the crucial part between moving from this output, because with European funded projects, how many people here have had European funded projects? Okay, you always have to have evidence that you're doing stuff as part of the funding. So we've promised to do the intellectual output number 1, which is the competency framework, and intellectual output number 2, which is a reflective practice scheme and a toolbox for teachers to use. So we're trying to make the connection between the first one and the second one. So at the moment, we're just tidying up our second output, which is the reflective practice scheme, the toolbox. I'm not going to read this if that's okay. Is that okay? Okay. But the reflective practice scheme, again, there's a lovely connection between the first one, the competency framework, and this one here, where we're increasing self-awareness, being creative and innovative, learn from experience, improve your performance and development, and develop new professional practices. And hopefully we'll be able to inspire you today with elements of that as well in the workshops that Debbie's organised. And this is the model. And again, it's that crossing the curricular, cross-curricular, so being able to move in and out of different subjects, but also being respectful of people's opinions and ideas. And that's also being adaptable and flexible, which is quite a dramatic change within the education sector. And then we're using this acronym called CRAFTED. Again, it's on our website. And just connecting the two between the reflective practice scheme. So you're having thinking routines and strategies. So what will support me in my teaching practice or my learning practice using the 4 Cs? Using electronic tools like the laptops, like apps and so on, so that supports your learning. And then the differentiated. So I suppose that, in a way, is critical analysis of what you're doing. And that's it. I've just presented on behalf of Jo. So unfortunately, she's not here. So I hope I've done her a good job. Thank you very much. Okay. Hand that over to Debbie.
Yeah. So what, I have to do the stand-up comedy? Or?
Yes.
No, so in like what minutes? So the questions and answers. Do we have any questions? And don't be shy. I know some people are teaching, so there might be something commenting, like the. Well, somehow I'm used to this, so maybe you are the joker. Yeah, you wanna? Yeah. Yes, Boan. I don't know how to switch it. This, maybe it is. It's not. Yeah. Yeah.
I can. Ciao. I'm just curious because what you mentioned a lot of buzzwords, a lot of very difficult terms. And I'm just curious, out of my personal curiosity, I would say, how did you guys manage to define what is critical thinking, what is creativity, and these type of things? I mean, based upon my experience, when you work in teams of people with different backgrounds, with different educational backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, it's often quite some kind of comments. Poticanja, please help. Yeah. Something you stumble upon, where it's difficult to, to get to a next level if you don't have some kind of an agreement, at least cloudy agreement of what are you working on. So what is critical thinking for you? What is creativity for you? What is the other 2 C's out of 4 C's?
Can you tell us your background?
No, sure. Okay. Well, currently, I'm just science education communicator consultant. Yeah. Short enough.
I think within the European context, every partner is going to have a slightly differentiated definition. So it's not a fixed definition. So for us, let's say in Ireland, it might differ to our Italian partners or the Croatian partners and the Finnish partners here. So it depends on the context. So for critical thinking in the museum might differ from critical thinking within the context of a classroom. So I'm just trying to think, if I've facilitated a group of teenagers in the museum, and I brought them in. They're boys, age 15, and they would never normally come into a museum. So it was their first time with their school. There were around 15, 16 of them, and instead of me telling them this is an object from China, this is an object from Japan, I gave them an object each. I broke them into teams, and I got them to tell me what they discovered. What did they see? What else did they find? And what else they could tell me? Kind of 3 critical questions. And we got back, regrouped, and we got them to feedback. And we got them to debate and use their critical thinking skills. So that, for me, in my context, is how I would... I think defining might be a bit too rigid. It depends on the context. What was the second half of your question?
Other C's.
And again, the collaboration, creativity. So creativity in our organisation might differ to what Debbie does in Radiona. Creativity could be a workshop where you explore a technique in Iranian, Persian traditional art. Debbie's not doing that. So that's what I mean. But we're inspiring creativity inspired by a particular historical context. So creativity is fluid. I think all those terms can be fluid. And I don't think they're kind of more a framework for us to hang on, and then we adapt. So adaptability comes up in the framework. So being able to be flexible and adaptable. So back to those boys I brought around, I assessed them when I saw them coming in. And I had to be flexible and adaptable to meet their learning needs, to support their critical thinking and their creativity within the context of the museum. I don't know if that answers you, because I'm thinking of my own practice. I didn't take them around and give them a didactic tour where they're bored out of their brain cells going, I don't want to come back here. They left that museum not wanting to go back to school because they were given a space to debate, to reflect, to be critical thinkers, but also to hear each other. And I think that's a great way of reflecting what's happening in the changing curriculum within the practice of, let's say, bringing a group of young people around. And in the Irish curriculum, the voice of the child is very, very important as well. So rather than me talking, it's like, actually, I want to hear your opinion. You tell me what you think about this. What in your life experience can you reflect in interpreting the objects here on display? Does that answer? Kind of. I knew it was going to be kind of.
It's not completely.
Yeah, and you are a science teacher, yeah? So it is about, I think it's about the interdisciplinarity. It's like, this is like what Jenny said, it's about fluid things, yeah? And it depends on the context and having a wider image, you know? Like, when we talk, for instance, about the science or connecting science with arts and technology, there's been a very important portion of the cultural history, for instance, of science, which is very important to see, that we see what were the circumstances that some invention was happening, you know. We get, like you said, the Western-oriented, what you taught at history. I guess many of us here would say, like, oh, we don't want to even comment our own curriculum, you know, and things like that, what kids are learning, you know, about our own history. So, but it's kind of interesting to see this. It's interesting to see when you go into the history of innovations, like the Chinese innovation, like the Islamic innovation. They were very fundamental, like the Mayan culture, the South American cultures, which gave a lot of things regarding the cultural history of science, you know. So if we go into definitions, I think that's the sometimes a trap that we get into this, that we have to have a definition in order to be legit to discuss about. This, I think, is the idea not just behind this project, but what we do is to deconstruct things, to dare to deconstruct, you know. And if we have now, you know, generation of not just young people, we have people in their 40s who doesn't know how to change the bulb, doesn't know what to do, you know, at home. They don't have any skills, motoric skills. We also have now people who are just, you know, it's a career in the digital areas, you know. We don't have any more people in hardware, as we are dealing with hardware, and you have there one, you will see later, you can play Pong on one board that we developed. We have a problem, you know, finding people who are engineers who deal with electronic, with hardware. And it's an industry that is happening now. We depend on it. We want to think about environment. We want to make changes, but on the other hand, we are cutting some skills. We are finding shortcuts, you know, and not having like no-brainer, just don't do brain stuff. It doesn't mean overthinking. On the other hand, we have just the opposite side. We have overthinking and terrible burden, which is psychological. This is why, thankfully, we talk about the mental health too for last couple of years. And on the other hand, you know, we have like the no-brain society. And we've been questioning ourselves what is happening, you know, because we are not developing motoric skills anymore. The kids don't know how to fall from the bicycle. They don't know how to fall from the tree. They don't know how to stumble upon. And they don't know that failure is the process that is normally to happen. Because of these beauty arrangements, the Instagram image that you have, and that we also partake. So what we can do about that? This is all kind of, at least for me, the process that has been very much interconnected. And when you come at the end of this tunnel, of course, there is always a light, but it's kind of a lot of blur, you know. There has been a lot of, like the old TV, a lot of interferences happening, you know. But we have to open the discussion about the critical thinking. It should not be, and when we talked yesterday, and when Peggy said, like, why are we not talking about creative thinking? Yeah, in the sense of, because some societies don't have the habit of having, the critic means that they are just criticizing, like we have a lot of this in Croatia, very bipolar society. Either you are left or right, is it that or that, and then people go on the Facebook in many discussions, and you don't want to show up for the next week or two to get the rest of this. On the other hand, we don't have meaningful conversations that are just acknowledging somebody else has a maybe different opinion, just in nuances. At the end of the ballot, we realized that these are the nuances, that sometimes we are on the same line, or maybe not, but there is no culture of a dialogue. So it's about, I think, critical thinking. It's a dialogue, it's a conversation. I can say from my experience, for instance, dealing with geeks, with technology and artists all together, they don't communicate. They don't have sometimes the similar language. But we have to build this, let's say, bridges. It sounds very like a cliche, but it's the fact that they can understand each other, that they can exchange thoughts, you know, and not being like freaks and weirdos to each others. I think there has been this societal moment when we are all in between ourselves, freaks and weirdos, and let's welcome these freaks and weirdos in order to start the process of deconstructing it. So we see that there are not monsters behind that, you know, that we just have a different opinion about something. Yeah, so I'm obviously, sometimes they tell me I'm a good motivational speaker. So yeah, is there anyone else who wants to say something? Or, yeah, thank you.
I just have a question. Did you cooperate with teachers and school, and what was that cooperation like?
That's a really good question. No. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we couldn't get access to schools and teachers. And yesterday we were supposed to talk about when are we going to work with teachers? That's our this is something we have to do before February. But we have struggled to get, in Ireland anyway, we have struggled to get schools and teachers until they've all started coming back into our museum as of September. But before that, they just, like all the contacts that I've had, I tried and tried and tried, like a stone wall of silence. But there's a silver lining in there. We managed to do a teacher training session in November last year. And during that teacher training session, said we need people to help us with experimenting with object-based learning, which is learning through objects.
But also with thinking of the workshops, because it's very important that you are in the curriculum of something in school, so it is interesting for the teachers and for the students.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I think you should cooperate with
we have to. Otherwise, we're going to have to give some money back. We have to.
Good luck then.
But we have a new, in our organization, I don't know about Finland, Italy. They're very far away. And so we're going to have to kidnap a few teachers. And
I can volunteer my school.
There you go,
Croatia,
Debbie.
Yeah.
Debbie, do you need a school? There you go. One school, yes. But the pandemic has really thrown everything out of kilter. I was begging schools, please, can we work with you? Silence. But they're beginning to come back. We have a new education officer who started 2 months ago, and I've never seen so many schools, asking to come in. It's like, what's going on here? So they're obviously trying to get back to a sense of normality and bringing kids back out into the museum world.
Thank you.
She's a former teacher.
Yeah.
So she has a lot of, she can make a lot of links that Irish curriculum. Oh, sorry. I'm just saying that we're very lucky that a colleague who joined us is actually a former teacher, so she knows the Irish curriculum very well, and we're hoping that she will be able to introduce teachers to us as an organization. But as Jenny said, collaboration with teachers is paramount to this project. There's no point in doing something for them without them. Their opinion is key in this process. So absolutely we aim to work with them, all of us, all partners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from school too, or faculty willing to comment something or to say something? How do you, when you have experiences of non-formal education and informal education, and you want to do something within the system? I'm not asking that you criticize anything in that sense, but is there anything where you see which are the small doors for the kind of elements of informal or non-formal learning to enter the system? Being a part of curriculum, of course, you have to go within some certain system, classification, and of course, we all know that the street cannot enter like this, but also like to kind of acknowledge that these are not, these knowledges are not the street knowledges, yeah? They are just part of other institutions, yeah? Yeah. Can you just say something?
My name is Ksenia. I work with kids. I teach abacus, techniques of learning, and I'm very well informed what is taught in school and in which way. And I'm very desperate. Those are kids which we have one teacher from 1st to 4th grade, and it's okay. The subjects are based so that kids can learn by themselves. In the 5th grade, you come to, kako se kaže, predmetna nastava, subject learning, geography, history. You have different teachers, and subjects and terms that children are learning became very abstract. They can't stick it to something visual because it's atmosphere. First time in your life you are reading geography and it says the life on Earth begins when the atmosphere became around it. So I'm learning techniques of how to visualize it. And our system is very, very poor in practice. Our children are learning so many things by words and nothing in practice. They have art from 1st grade to 8th grade, and in secondary, high school, 4 years, they don't ever get a canvas and the paint to I'm trying to teach kids how to love what they learn, but it's very difficult. Our system is repressing them. It's telling them that they are not competent to learn, that they are stupid, and they work hard. I can't see how we can get out of it, maybe by teaching teachers.
That's disappointing to hear, but I suppose it's the reality. And our new colleague who in the museum we work in Dublin said teachers are very slow to change as well. Museums can be very slow to change. Like this week we've got a new creative space that's been repainted to encourage people to come in. That's taken almost 10 years. So that's what I'm saying. I think if it takes one teacher to be inspirational, hopefully it will radiate outwards. That's all I can say, because I can't comment on the Croatian education system. But if you have one spark, one thing that ignites learning. I remember having one teacher in my school, and I'll never forget her, because she told me I was actually good. And I'm out of school a long time, but I still remember her. So if you're that one teacher who can inspire, hopefully your kids will take that with them. That's all I can comment on now, but I think for us, the collaboration with the likes of Radiona and other inspirational creative spaces has helped us to be inspired in our own learning, because we were kind of in a space where we don't know where to go. We're stuck, we don't have money. We never have money, that's the problem. But we want to be creative. And how do we do that with no money? Okay, well, the maker community makes stuff with no money because they're innovative, they're creative, they're collaborative, they're open source, they don't patent, they don't close off. Museums tend to close off. They don't want to share their ideas. So it's like, well, if the museum won't do it, let's go elsewhere. So I suppose I was in a situation similar to you. I went, okay, the museum's not going to give us this. So who else is going to give us this? Who else is going to help us? And that's why collaboration is so important. So if there's somebody who out there might be, I don't know, who can inspire. You sound like you're the inspiring teacher. Then it's hard, it's very hard. But if you can keep on inspiring.
It's not hard for me. I feel, in a way, pity for kids. And I also taught NTC Rankorajević. I don't want to make advertisement for him, but that's the kind of learning. He's from Serbia, the member of Mensa. And he has a program for kids from very young age where they are challenged to think how to solve a problem together and by themselves. And in Istra there is a school, Pazin, I think, that implemented his program in school, in public school, and it does very good results. We are having slight changes, Montessori school also, but in our public school, critical thinking, collaboration between kids is not wanted. They're very competitive. We are giving them wrong values, I think. Yeah. So we have a mission here. Yeah.
Is there anyone, do you want to about the Dutch or later? Okay.
Hi, I'm Martina. Sorry for my bad English. I have master in ethnology and currently I don't work. But I was working, I want to comment a little bit about everything. So I was working as a student and in kids animation in Dubrovnik with kids from England, Russia, and from, there were a lot of them from England, no? And so we had program and during the program we had, for example, 1 hour of basketball. So we went on the playground and I gave them a ball and they were like, what now? What to do? And I said, okay, come on, do this and push it in this, I don't know how to call it, basket, yes. And they were like, oh, okay. And we were like looking around and they didn't know what to do. So it was like, no, we only watch it on TV. And during this job for 2 months, I lost a lot of weight. It was really hard, and I understand that I wanted to play with little kids because the kids that have 3, 5, 4, 6 years, they are more creative, yes. And the bigger one, they are all want to be on the mobile phones, and they're oh no, we prefer to be on phones. And I said no, it's my job. We have to do something creative. So yeah, it was really hard. And the last job I was working in school, but I was only teaching assistant. So I work with problematic kids with ADHD, and the last one had autism. And it was really hard, and I want to only say that during the school, they are bored. For example, if they have history or geography, they're only listening, as you said, listening teachers, and they're bored. So they're asking, can I go to the toilet? Can I go to the toilet? And once I went to the toilet with this kid which I was with, and I opened the door, and the girl was sitting in the toilet. She didn't close the door. She was sitting on the toilet and on TikTok. So yeah, they're asking to go out to be on the phones. And it's time to change something because their heads are working faster than ours. And this is a problem with older professors because they're used to teach or to talk for hours. And kids are bored and they don't know nothing. They're only, for example, in the history, they don't know the elementary stuff from the history because they're bored and now they have their own rights and they say, oh, my mom is going to call, I don't know, somebody, you are how to say, harassing me as a professor, so yes. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, we can discuss a lot and talk, and we are very happy that you are opening. Yeah. So we will go on to the next presentation, so that we are following a little bit the line. But but let it have this as a two-way communication. Yeah. So that we can continue this dialogue. So my colleague Maddalena Nicoletti from Steps Italy is jumping in. Yeah.
Hello and good morning to everybody. I will continue the discourse that Jenny Siung has just started with IO1, and I would like to remark some aspects of these European projects, of these Erasmus Plus projects. On the one hand, they are quite theoretical because they need to respect some technical requirements by the various European agencies, but on the other hand, they are very, very practical because what we are asked as partners when we win a grant, when we are given money from the agencies, is that we produce real products that can be used in real life. So on the one hand, there is much theory behind, there is a lot of research behind what we produce, but the final products are real tools that can be used in reality. So this project in particular is for us as partners very, very much important because, as Jenny mentioned at the beginning of her speech, it's the fourth project in a row that relates to critical thinking, creative thinking, collaboration and cooperation, and about the 4 C's in a word. So we've been researching on this topic for almost 7 years now, so it's not something new. And even if in this particular project we had troubles due to COVID working with schools, this was unlike in the previous projects because we didn't have any health emergency in Europe. So during all the previous projects, we developed our ideas, we developed definitions, we developed criteria, we developed an idea, we developed a path to follow, and that has been followed during and has been developed during these 4 projects. So even if in this particular project we really faced this global pandemic that caused us as a group of partners many issues in being in contact with school, this was not the same situation in the previous projects. And previous projects are fundamental for the Forces project that we are presenting now, because this is the end of the process, that started many, many years ago, and we've been investigating on this topic for many years. So this is an important part to explain, because all these projects have produced practical tools, practical issues that are still available online on those projects' website and that you can use. And this project, the Forces project, also will produce tools that you can use in real life. So during phase 1, we have produced, technically it's called intellectual output number 1, but indeed it is composed of the several small tools that Jenny showed you before. So you can download this tool from the project website, and teachers in schools and educators in museum can download this PDF or PowerPoint, and it's really a scheme, something that you can print and you can use during your teachings, classes, educational experiences. It's a simple checklist. It's been made simple, prepared simple, so you can tackle what you're doing and what you need. And this was the first phase. What teachers and educators and learners need in their daily activity to change the way they impact on their students. And the second part is what we are presenting now. But the other remark that I think is important to answer some of the questions from the audience is that it's very, very, very much difficult, as Jenny was saying, to produce a changement. Changements are always very slow in life, in any area of our lives, and especially when we talk about institutions. Public institutions are always slow to take in new ideas, because there is bureaucracy, because there are organizations to be changed. So a very important part of any Erasmus Plus project is the third part, the final part of the project, which we are not presenting today because we are not in that phase yet. It's the last phase that we have to develop in the next month, which is called normally recommendations and suggestions. And the third part of these projects is always directed to institutions, and it contains these last parts contain we can't really call it instruction. It's better to call them in a more softly way recommendations or suggestions directed to institutions and to public subjects, and we can't, as museums or as schools, as partners, we can't really impact or we can't oblige the educational ministries of our European countries to change. We can't impose anything by law, but what we can do is to show that we exist, that we have ideas, and that we can, as a group of people from the bottom, we want changement and we want institutions to listen to us. And so what we normally do is to produce some very small recommendations in a very simple way, and these are uploaded on the Erasmus Plus project websites. And if institutions want to listen, they can go and have a look, and maybe somebody in the ministry will be enlightened, or as Jenny was saying, a spark from this project will get into the ministries, as somebody sooner or later will be inspired by this work. So to go very quickly through phase two of the project is related to the development of other very practical tools, which will be used, or which we hope will be used by teachers and educators in museum to reflect on what they are doing, because the first part of the project gives teachers and educators tools to work daily in their activities with their students or with museum audiences. But the second part will help teachers and educators to reflect on what they are doing, because normally you do, but not so often you have the time to stop and reflect on what you have done. Or if you do that, maybe you don't have a scheme, or you don't have a clear idea on how to reflect on what you have done. So as a group of partners, what we have done, we have put together our experiences. We have spent a lot of time together talking collaboratively, creative thinkingly, and we have really thought about our real experiences. What do we do in our daily life? How do we reflect on what we do? And we have developed a set of tools that are derived from our experiences. So it's not the truth. It's what is good for us, and it's what has been good for us so far. And of course, it is also new ideas coming from our collaboration and cooperative work. So what we have produced during phase 2, which is almost concluded, is we have produced a set of reflective practice tools, each of them covering a different topic. So I'm getting through this very quickly, but you can have these slides, and in a few days you can download them from the project website, so you can read them at your own pace. And just to go very quickly through this, we have produced 4 different reflective practice tools, each of them related to a different topic, and each topic is related to one of the 4 C's. So one reflective practice tool is related to self-development in education. We are talking about education, so we are not talking about self-development in general. And then another tool is a reflective practice related to team development in education. Another one is reflective practice and creativity development in education. And the fourth and last is reflective practice tool related to well-being in education. Why these 4 topics are important for us? Not only because each of them is somehow more or less, or more strongly or less strongly related to one of the 4 C's or to all the 4 C's, but also because these are the topics that emerged from our discussion as partners, as the most important topics from us, from our experiences. Without self-development, we cannot change anything. Self-development in education is particularly important and is related not only to the people you are teaching to, but it's also related to teachers and educators themselves. And the same as team development. Team development is related to the group of developing your group of students or your audience in the museum. But if you haven't got a strong team development within your organization, you can't do that. So each of these 4 topics we have chosen mirrors either the teachers and educators and the students or audience. So it's something that talks to both faces of the environment. And just to talk I have mentioned how we have worked together. We have worked collectively. It's been a very, very, very strong collaboration among us. We couldn't, due to the COVID pandemic, we couldn't meet on site, not as often as we needed. So we work a lot online, which has been very difficult because working online is not as having a personal exchange. But we have put a very strong effort in every single online meeting we had, and even if those were online meetings, they were really, really much productive, and I have to say we have been very proud of this, because it's been a really big effort, and it's been a very big and strongly collaboration experience for us. So we can say that if you put effort in this, you can have great results as well. So this is in general what we have produced as the second phase of the project. And let me see if there is anything more that I can say that might be interesting. The four open educational resources will be introduced by a reflective practice scheme, which is another tool that can be used by teachers and educators, so it's something practical as well. And you will find in this some instructions or some ideas that you can use in schools, classes, and museums. Then there is a description of the methodology, but I've already talked about this. I just want to mention that we have tried to develop these resources with a strong focus on digital education, because digital education is not just something that is needed nowadays in general, but is strongly needed in times of health emergencies. And we had a focus on European cultural heritage, because it's important for us as partners, and it's important for schools and museums as well. And what else? The crafted methodology, we've already talked about this. And you will find we are giving the final touches to these resources, so they are not available online yet, but they will available in the next weeks, and you can download them from the project website. Yeah, but oh yeah, okay. We can, if somebody is interested, we can send these open educational resources to you via email, or in the PowerPoint. On the second slide, you find the website of the project, and you can download all the resources from here. And at the end of the project, you will find also the recommendations I was referring to at the beginning, which are directed to institutions, but you can maybe find some interesting ideas for your own institution as well, and maybe use them to go to your director and say, haha, I've read this, I've listened to this, maybe it's a good, if you have somebody listening to you or open to this. And yeah, that's it. And I don't know if Vincent McCarthy, our partner from the Festival of Curiosity in Ireland, wishes to introduce one of these resources now, and if you have questions, we can answer all questions all together, or if you have questions now, what Debbie, what do you suggest? Yeah.
No worries, that's perfect. Thanks, Maddalena. Hi everybody, my name is Vincent McCarthy. I'm from Ireland and the Festival Curiosity, so I'll take off my sunglasses. And what I'm going to chat about today is one particular one, and it's about well-being in reflective practice. We're talking about definitions earlier, obviously, and one of the key concepts we tried to introduce to this resource was the idea of brain health, if people are familiar with it. So brain health is a critical piece of our overall health. It's a foundation of how we communicate, how we think, and how we live in a productive and useful life. Brain health is a relatively new concept in science. The idea is to bring all the different sciences under one umbrella. So you're looking at biology, genetics, neuroscience, psychology, and it looks a lot about how our environment affects our brain. So when we think about teaching environments and learning environments, brain health is a really important concept. There's a really good institute in Ireland called the Global Brain Health Institute. It's in Trinity College, Dublin. There's a lot of resources on their website if you're interested, and it's also in the University of California, San Francisco. But we tried to introduce this concept into our work as something new for people. Also as well, another definition of mental well-being we're all familiar with, feeling good, functioning well, and coping adequately with life circumstances and challenges. So how does well-being relate to what we're talking about here today, which is teaching practices? So ultimately, all the 4C partners think mental well-being is really important for critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication, which is our 4Cs. So this is a belief of ours, and that is really important. And we heard even some small stories earlier about how stressful it can be in learning environments and teaching, and how a lot of pressure is put on teachers and educators to be inspirational, to help children and students become better. So this was a huge concern of ours, obviously from chatting to teachers as well. So when we thought about this resource, we looked at an audience of teachers, educators, but also administrators as well, because it's incumbent on them to create environments to increase people's well-being. So when we looked at the different tools, we looked at 3 options. It might be hard to see on the screen at the moment. We looked at, what we tried to do is look at tools that could be used in the school environment, within school hours, and applied in groups. And we thought this was the best one. What was good about this was that it creates a space for reflection and self-care, which is really important. So ultimately, it's not it's the responsibility of the teacher to take care of themselves. It's the responsibility of the school, actually, or the learning environment to help all the people working there to be better. This is just a huge list of stuff that's really interesting, but it's a place to find ways to help people cope with stress. And these are just some examples, again, of the recommendations for it. So for administrators, it's to encourage group activities and collective work, to provide opportunities for people to meet with each other and things like that. And for teachers, is to take the time to develop or strengthen feeling of having a purpose in life. So there's loads of examples here that people can take from this resource. Looking at option B, again, this is at school within school hours, but applied individually. So this is what you can do yourself during school hours. What we want for that is create space again for yourself, which is really important. And I think in some respects, this starts at the very beginning of valuing yourself and your time and your mental well-being. And starting from that place and going on a journey where that will help influence and improve your teaching, but also the environment for people. So these are just some examples from chatting to teachers, also some examples from the latest research in brain health. A lot of it is about how your environment unconsciously or subconsciously affects your well-being. So a lot of that is getting out of an environment where you feel stressed, getting into nature, which is obvious and things like that, but whatever is good for you. So a little bit of exercise and things like that. But the idea is to integrate that into your reflective practice. So it's not just separate from it, it's part of it. And the last one, which is the toughest one to ask people to do, is to do outside school hours. So again, this is putting the responsibility on the teachers or educators to do work themselves, to help themselves. But again, it's really important. Hopefully you take time to where you can relax, feel mentally free. And here are loads of examples, again, of those kind of resources people can have. I'm not going to go through all of them now because we don't have a huge amount of time. I'll just leave this up for a few seconds. But the idea is that in each of these areas that Maddalena spoke about, we wanted to help give people examples, tools to help them improve, whether it's self-development, teamwork, or it's something like well-being. And hopefully from this, and with us chatting to teachers as the next phase, we'll be able to create this cycle where we can create learning that will improve all aspects of the 4Cs, which are really important to us. So now, that's it. That was just a whirlwind tour of all the different aspects and tools within this reflective practice. Thank you so much. Debbie.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any question, comment, or anything? Yeah, and don't be afraid. It doesn't have to be smart. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, the science. Oh, can we hand to the lady and then yeah.
Hello. My name is Martina and I'm a teacher. I work as, I don't know the real name, daycare teacher, first and second class. I work with their free time, you know. Yes, we yeah, they care in school, you know, after their subjects. After obligatory subjects, I work with them. We do homeworks and etc. Okay, I would like to give you one small reflection about how average teacher is thinking in Croatia, although I'm not so average. I think that communication between average teacher and projects like this is very poor, you know. It's very distant to average teacher to be a part of this kind of project, I think, because teacher become anxious when they see EU projects with steps, everything is on English, all that forms. Even when we want to educate ourselves about EU projects or any projects, it's always about the money, you know, and time. Yes, I mean, I'm good, I'm pretty good, I don't know, with English, but most teachers aren't. And we would really like to know more about new stuff in education, you know, new progressive things. We really like creativity and communication. We are all about collaborative things, but I think the communication between average teachers and projects should be better, and I think that's the thing to work on. Thank you.
I don't think anyone is assuming that teachers don't have that interest or they're in a lethargy or something like that. It's certainly that the certain systems that people sometimes, you know, are feeling hopeless. Yeah, that's kind of also something that we should aware. There's also like a part maybe as of a self-reflection that this kind of rethinking about your position, but you can have it in the system or not. I assume any one of us has a different background, professional, privately, you know, and so it's also about us. Sometimes you feel like there is no changes, that you are hitting the wall, yeah. So it is a very complex thing, and it takes a lot of discussions how to bridge these worlds, yeah, how to bridge the formal education and non-formal education. I don't think that the smart. I think the easiest way is always like going on. These people are not working anything. They're not interested. This is always like the narrative, the media narrative. This is like something that we also have to. Also like emphasize or be aware that there is a media narrative, a certain one, that people who are working in public institutions, they don't work anything, like this is the one thing, which is not the case, because people who are not in the system don't know that there is a legal thing that you have to, that it's not like having a private company, or for me, having an NGO. I have experience in both systems. So I understand my colleagues, you know, because it's like, you have to have a certain things which are legal, you know, not everyone we cannot change the curriculum, because this is not about anarchy, yeah? I think it's more about how we interlace, where do we find the platforms for interconnecting formal, non-formal education, informal education, how do we address? Because informal education seems like very crucial in a young democracies, as is, for instance, is our country, yeah, because it's a lot of learning. Kids are learning from the neighborhood, from the families. This is like fundamental. You cannot. There is no education system no matter how progressive it is, if the informal learning is bad, if you have poor society, if you have poor environment, if you have this, then we can talk, we can just, you know, I wanted to say, to use another word, but I'm not, because we are going on a streaming, but I not talking, you know what I wanted to use, I guess, is that we want to create methodologies that are really useful, that are possible to use in the practice, you know. Yeah, thank you.
And the remark that the lady just given us is correct. And what we normally do in Erasmus Plus projects, as these projects are participated by partners from different countries, is that the resources that are produced are normally translated in the partners' languages, which means, of course, not in all the European languages, but at least in the partners' languages. So, for example, in the previous project, which is called Creative School Project, which I really recommend to go on the web and have a look at, has produced several resources which are very much useful and have been developed together with teachers. And these resources have been translated into the partners' languages, which means Italian, English, French, and I can't remember Finnish and other languages. So it depends on the project. It depends on the partners of a specific project. And in the case of the 4 projects we have mentioned so far, which are connected to each other, the resources we have produced have been translated into the partners' languages. So maybe one of those languages will be available to you or known to you, English, French, or another of those languages. And we can't, of course, for a question of time and money, we can't translate all these resources in the 27 European countries' languages, but this is what we can do. And of course, there are several Erasmus Plus projects developed during the years, and so maybe you will find some that is suitable or that is interesting for you in a language that is your own language.
If I can just add to that, thanks, Maddalena. We usually, in sessions like this, offer practical, hands-on activities. So learn by doing, because European speak is like a mountain. If you've ever looked at an application form, you'll never fill it in. So there's the Euro speak, but then for us as practitioners, by coming out here in public spaces and meeting the likes of yourselves, hopefully there's a network, you get to meet people. Hopefully there's a synergy, collaboration for maybe something that you'd like to test out for your teaching practice. Forget the European speak. That's just the dressing. It's coming here. The fact that you've come here is great. But Debbie has organized workshops this afternoon, and that's where I've been inspired about learning by doing. If I don't learn, I'm not going to change my practice. And I think hopefully, okay, that's all, that's the presentation of the Eurospeak, but hopefully that translates into the hands-on activities. I don't know if that helps with your comment. Yeah. All 4. Okay, great. Do
we have anything regarding the oh, sorry, yeah, Bojan.
If somebody else has a question, then. No, I'll just put another hat on me because I have a teaching experience as well, and NGO experience as well, and a teacher training experience as well. So I'm going to mix up everything. What you mentioned are very, cool aims and stuff. Can you give us a concrete example on how a teacher can shift her ways of teaching, and of this phase 2 on how to reflect on this practice? Is that going to be done on a workshop maybe, or can you be a little bit more specific as your colleague was? Because he said, like, okay, if you're stressed out and you want to take care about your brain health, take a walk around the house. So I would appreciate that. And just until you turn it on, just question. I know it's very ungrateful when you. I mean, when I was a teacher, I just quit. When I was a teacher, I did not like outsiders from the teacher community, especially from university level, to come down to my level and tell me how am I supposed to do my work without them having experience in classroom at all. Mm-hmm. And the teachers who teach know that it's a completely different world. You have your own plan, you come into a classroom, and then everything falls apart. And it's usually like this. And then you have these kind of outsiders who are telling you what you should do. And this is what teachers don't like, in a sense, mm-hmm. especially if they don't have any kind of teaching experiences and stuff like this. And since as a teacher trainer as well, I know that I hate it a lot when teachers come to me, okay, give me a recipe. Because it's not about recipe, it's about trying to figure it out and improvise, and that's one of the C's, creatively, right? So I'm not asking for a recipe, but I'm asking for example of what
That's
you have.
That's perfectly clear. Well, first of all, these projects, Erasmus Plus projects, are never aimed at giving strict instructions. We are not public institutions, we are not education ministries, so what we produce and what we offer to the European community it comes from our direct experience and our suggestions. So we never think that what we offer and what we produce as results is compulsory. So those are just ideas that you read and you pick up and you think, this might work for me, that is not working for me, this is a good idea, this is good to apply in my class, or maybe in this class in particular, but not in that class because students are different. So what Jenny explained at the very beginning is that the methodology we have used to develop not only the outputs in this project, but the outputs in the 3 previous projects is very flexible, is a methodology that covers different aspects. It's called the crafted methodology, and it covers different aspects of teachings. Those aspects are not compulsory, are ideas, suggestions, so we do not want to substitute ourselves to teachers. We do not come from a university level, we are not we don't want to produce anything which is compulsory or a fixed statement. We are just giving ideas. We want to try to inspire people, the public, the audience, teachers, museum, and we don't even pretend to have a truth. What we suggest is what was good for us, what comes from our experience and what was good in our experience, and we want to share this. So we don't want anybody to feel obliged. So I hope I have answered the first. So when
I have a very good example. We have a new colleague who's an ex-teacher. The way of getting teachers to work with museums and museums vice versa, you work with teachers, you collaborate with teachers, because I learned early on, I used to go to teachers going, here is a learning resource made for you. They go, get lost. Why are you giving me this? Whereas I started working with teachers to create learning resources with them. So once a teacher finds out that a teacher has made it, I have no problem. Collaborating with teachers all the time, consulting teachers all the time, rather than a museum coming in and going, we know what's best because we're great. That doesn't work. Teachers know exactly what's what. So that's where the collaboration plays a very important role. And the fact that we have somebody now who's meeting teachers on site, they have a code. There's a code language between teachers that museums may not have. As soon as you have the right people in the right posts in order to build that pathway between a museum and a school and a teacher. And that seems to be working. We're getting schools in. That's been really challenging for us. The fact that they're coming in, I think the way it happens in Ireland is, did you hear there's a teacher working in the Chester Beatty? Oh, there's a teacher working in the Chester Beatty. Right, we're going to go in. I've never seen, we're getting loads of bookings for schools, which has been a struggle for us. So I think it's getting the right people in the right places. We leave the academics talk to the curators. They seem to understand each other very well. And then when it comes to teacher training, we collaborate with teacher training organizations to foster that collaboration. I would never do it on my own. I always collaborate with the third level teacher training centers. I don't know if that answers your question. Not really. Because you are the critical thinker. This is the thing. Oh, we haven't done it yet. Yeah.
Which is kind of that you guys developed and then you wrote in.
That's the pilots.
Really weight.
Yeah.
And I would like if you have like concrete examples.
No.
This is a multiplier event.
Yeah.
In a sense, right? Isn't it?
The pilots.
So
the
is it like, should I go online to read that or you can show me? Okay, fair enough. You said it.
We are finalizing this one, and we are hoping that it's going to be finished maybe within 2 weeks or so. But I was in a group that talked about self-development and reflection and team development. And so we have come up with several suggestions on how you can do reflection within the team and how it can benefit you personally and the team that you're working with. So one of the suggestions we came up with was finding a mentor, finding somebody that you might have admired. So if you're a science communicator, perhaps you had a great science teacher in your school. Perhaps you can link up with them because there was something about their teaching method that you really clicked with, and you might just have that kind of relationship of a mentor and mentee. Or perhaps within your own within your own school, as we have said, and I think Vince really stressed how important it is, that it's the environment of the school that supports you in your teaching, that you actually talk to the teachers who teach similar subjects. If there's any rating done amongst pupils, you find out who is the popular teacher. Yeah. You actually find out what the hell are they doing that is so good, that the students are responding so well, that they're not on the toilet, on TikTok, but they actually in the class. That you talk to parents, perhaps, if you have relationship with parents, and you get their feedback, their children feedback through the parents. So that kind of, collaboration for self-reflection can be really good. And I'm sure there's other examples from other groups. But give us a couple of weeks to actually have it finished and on the website. Thank you.
As far as IO1, it's already available on the project website, and this is just a presentation of IO1. So what you are seeing here is not IO1. IO1 is very, very short, very quick, and it's, as I said before, it's something that you can print and you can tick. You can check what you are doing. So, for example, this slide competency framework is one of the tools that you can print and you can have look at, and you can see if it works or not for your class, for your situation. Under any of the 4 C's, there is a short list of ideas and suggestions, so you can get inspired from there and see if one of those suggestions works for you or not in a specific class or in a specific grade. And the checklist of what learners need is not a theoretical thing we have presented here, but is something that you can print and you can use in your class to see if this list of suggestions that we are proposing is working for you or not. And it's a check on the website, it's in a form of a sheet, and so you can really tick anything or cancel or delete or take your own notes and make your own reflection after a class. So the same for the checklist of what teachers need or checklist of teacher-educator activities. These are pages that you can print and use to prepare a class, to prepare a lesson, or you can use to revise what happened after a lesson or a meeting if you are working in a museum. And training need analysis here is presenting in a very, very compacted way, but on the website you will find 5 pages with lines, so you can take your own notes and you can just put down your ideas and see what works or not. So this is a practical, really practical tool. And as an example for us as a team of what we have done, you asked for a practical example. When we developed the 4Cs project, we used these tools to imagine, to project, to plan, to visualize, to develop what we were thinking we were needing for the 4Cs project, needed behind a thinking, needed a plan, needed the 4Cs. So we had to apply collaboration, creative thinking, critical thinking, all the 4Cs. Without the 4Cs, this project wouldn't exist. These outputs wouldn't exist. And when before I said that the most important part for us would have been to meet together, because gathering together means really being physically in contact and feeling the energy of the group, which is what happens in classes or in museums. For us was so important, and we couldn't profit that due to the pandemic. So we had to gather online, but we tried to work in that way and to apply the 4Cs to our project. So when I was presenting before the further reflective practices tool, one of them is called team development. And the team development reflective practice tool is derived from our own experience as a group of partners working on this project. So these tools are really practical and really derived from a practical experience. And Vincent McCarthy has just presented a reflective practice tool for teachers and well-being. And that tool in particular has been developed with teachers, because we have interviewed several teachers in Ireland and in Italy, and what we have discovered is that they are so stressed. We knew that before without even interview them. This is what happened in the health system as well. Teachers and health workers are under pressure, and what they need is well-being. So we interviewed them, we asked them what their situation was in their schools, how they felt, if they had a good connection with their teams or with their bosses or with the administrator or director of the school. And what we found out is that in certain schools there is quite a good environment and there is a caring for well-being, but in the greatest part of schools, this part is completely forgotten. Nobody is working on this. So these are suggestions, the suggestion that we are given here, coming from the wishes of the teachers. Teachers told us, I would like this, I would like that, I would like to have a space for well-being during my school hours. This is why we suggested 3 different environments, 3 different options to work on well-being together with your colleague during school hours, or to work on well-being during school hours but on your own, or to work on well-being when you are at home alone by yourself. So these are 3 different situations that emerged from questionnaires and direct interviews with teachers. So this is really a direct experience, and those are the suggestions that we gave to teachers in response to their needs and to their really stressful situations that they described us.
Stand up, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit comfortable for me. I'm Christina, I'm a biology teacher. I worked in a school for a few years and I really don't like schools. And I work now in non-formal education, which I think I'm much better educator now when I have a freedom and I can learn from you guys or all other people that I learned from in the last 10 years. So I would find myself nowadays to call that I'm much better than I was when I was working in a school because of a lot of things. But so my suggestion for you, or question, or maybe idea is, can you imagine yourself, like the people who worked on this project, to go in the classroom, to work with the school kids, and to test your framework. So in a way, like for example, I think my example or my experience told me that it's that people the teachers like examples, and teachers like to kind of see things very kind of concretely. So maybe open spaces, for me, it's a better idea or better method when you have 5 days with the teachers somewhere, I don't know, in Portugal, and you're working with them on some subject. But if you're in a school for 2 hours, maybe you can do whatever you like. You will going to do self-assessment about making a team in a classroom with the kids, and then you can discuss, for example, afterwards, what did you do with the school kids that make them in that 2 hours the great team? And then you can discuss it with the teacher, and maybe some of that can be implemented the next week or next day in the school. I will just say it from my experience. For example, I was in a school and we were doing the workshop science, whatever, it was something about environmental theme, and the teacher told me, she was very kind of pissed off, but she was my friend, and she told me, but Christina, kind of, it's okay, the subject is fine, but there is no discipline here. The students are not disciplined. And then I asked her, why is discipline so important? And then she kind of didn't know what to answer, because she just learned that if the students are quiet and you are very authoritative in the classroom, that means that you are a fine teacher. So that was kind of very great example of how and then we discussed for 10 minutes about what is discipline, why it's important, and why for us the discipline isn't important. It's much better for students to feel comfortable and say their opinion. I prefer that much better than discipline class. So can you feel comfortable in sharing your kind of tools that you have? And I really think that they are great, and I will check it and see if I can implement something in my work. So do you feel comfortable, or can you do it? Or what do you think about that kind of idea? Thanks.
Just very briefly, thank you very much for that feedback. We were supposed to go and work with schools to pilot IO2. And we were supposed to discuss that yesterday at our meeting. We ran out of time. But yes, we want to work with schools to test these out. And I know that's part of, I'm trying to catch the partners before they leave to say we need to do the pilots with schools. So you're absolutely right, 100%. There's no point in doing this without the input of teachers in schools and prototyping.
Yeah, can I also add something, like, and from the perspective of an organization that has been doing workshops, like, let's say, less regularly with schools, but what we do, within certain framework of some projects that we run, and one of them is also like the backpack full of culture, is that, for instance, what it means for me is that with each of these projects, this was not, their intention was, that's interesting how some of you are reacting, like, we are not here presenting Erasmus Plus. This is like, I mean, come on, this is not about project making, this is not about funding, this is not about application making, this is about the content that we are dealing in. So we are working with these same partners from 2014. And I can tell you for sure that, for instance, for my organization is that whenever we enter the new project, we implement one part, certainly, within our yearly program, what we do. So when I go to schools, and when I do the hacking things, what is the current thing that we do within these projects, I'm also implementing in my workshops. So it doesn't matter if it's something, for instance, I do within the Backpack Full of Culture, the Theremin postcard, you know, which is for me, the thing that is the interface to technology, what they are doing, how do they refer to it, what does it mean. I talk with kids about that. I ask them, you know, I have several hours, so it's not just about soldering, it's just also like thinking about the media. How do they shouldn't be afraid of technology. The technology has the interface of a postcard, you know, so I want them, and then I talk about, for instance, experimental electronic music and what they think about. Many of them are listening to the turbo folk, you know. So they come with can we switch the music a little bit while we solder, and there is a turbo folk. And I have an electronic device, you know, which is a theremin, and electronic music in front of me. And how I'm going to say this to teenagers, because I like to work with teenagers, yeah. So it of course, the idea is always to upgrade, to always to do this, so it's not just talking about the project. And I very like your comment, because it's very concrete, you know, implementing it now, doing it now, testing it now. So this is not about coming and preaching. That's because we all have these experiences, and all of us in between now. Nobody of us like preaching, you know, about that. So, and theorizing. I'm very tired, I'm a practical person. So it's always like you implement it in whatever you do, you know, testing, talking, self-reflecting. It doesn't mean that we will, like a school, you know, sit down and later on write, I learned today this, and he said this, and Boan said this, and I said this. It's something that you do with so many practices in school. What you actually have, you do it all the time. It's a continuous process. When it starts to become a continuous process, then it's the flow that you need, that it's very nice, you know, to work on. You know, then you upgrade kind of naturally, yeah. But I think it's okay from time to time also like reflect upon yourself what you're basically doing. And this is also like we have the teachers, but we also are reflecting on ourselves, what we are actually doing all of these years, you know. What is this that we want to achieve, you know, and what is achievement in that sense in the education system about us? Because there are 3 levels, formal, non-formal, and informal. For me, these 3 levels are, for me, they're everything, you know, and they're present every day, you know, in our work. But it's easier for us who have non-profit organization, art organization, who are independent people, than of course the institutional framework, you know, because it's a terrible burden that we sometimes put, you know, on people. Oh, I can go on. We will have to have because we lost the 30 minutes of the break. Peggy will lose, I mean our guest will lose the time frame. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, we will have a shorter break, yeah? So maybe 10-15 minutes before your talk, yeah? Okay. Just be sure.
Just to add a very quick thing, that in each European Erasmus Plus project there is a compulsory part which foresees that the outputs must be tested within schools. So we couldn't do that so far, with some exceptions due to COVID, but it is compulsory. So the agency, the European agency, will ask us if we have tried our outputs with schools and what the feedback has been. And so we have to somehow, after we've received feedback from teachers, we have to change our outputs according to the suggestions that we will receive. And as a very final thing, I would like to mention the partners of these projects, because I think it's important to you to get to know who we are and why we are together. And we are not institutions from the top. So from Croatia, there is Radiona, that you know. From Finland, the Finnish Museum Association, which is an association that groups museums and museums institutions, and their work is to teach and to give and to teach educators and museum educators and teachers. And then from Ireland we have Chester Beatty, which is an institution that is very important in Ireland. I don't know where Jenny is, but here we have Justina, and they have a very, very important collection of objects from all over the world. And one of their aims is to educate schools and children through their object in a very open and new way. And then we have Vincent McCarthy from the Festival of Curiosity, which is a very, very interesting and new festival, and they give enormous interesting workshops once a year, and the festival is directed to a new audience, and then they produce great results and great workshops. And then there is Steps from Italy. We are a very, very small research center. We've been working since 1987 with schools, so we are not teachers nor educators, but we work with teachers, listening to them and to their needs, and helping them in developing European projects. So we have schools within our projects as partners. And then we have Eritech and Sunderland Bowe, which is not present today because she is ill. And Eritech is an UK small company, and they deliver educational products developed directly with schools for schools. So we are not a group of formal institutions, and so we wish to develop products that are developed from the bottom and directly for users. And that's it. And thank you very much.
We need your attention.
No, we don't.
Hi, so Peggy Brandon here from Amsterdam. Yeah? Woohoo!
Not yet.
Okay. So we go for the video.
Yes.
The home page?
No, it's working.
Kijk wat de grote is.
Oh jee, ga je naar de bakker vandaag? Wat ga je dan eens? Gezellig, ga je mooie schilderijen bekijken?
Ik ben zo blij dat je er was. Ik dacht vannacht was ik wakker. Ik dacht, is Sheila nou maar weer beter?
Voorzichtig naar binnen lopen.
Goedemorgen allemaal. Hebben we er allemaal heel veel zin in?
Ja!
Ja, maar wat gaan jullie allemaal doen?
Naar de musea kijken.
Gaan jullie daar zelf tekeningen maken? Nee.
We gaan een kunst kijken. We hebben op school al heel veel aan kunst gedaan. We hebben zelf kunst gemaakt. Hè? We hebben een boot gemaakt inderdaad, hoe dat er vroeger uitzag. Hè?
Ja. Maar het is een beetje spannend.
Oh, rustig maar even.
Het is spannend. Maar dan niet aan die aan.
Nou, ja.
That was loud. I think there's 2 mics on. Here we go. How critical thinking got us through Corona and other stories. Let's see how this works. Yeah, this is me, Peggy Brandon. I'm an arts educator, I'm a curator and a policy maker. And today I'm supposed to talk for 20 minutes, which is ridiculous, but I will try. And I will start with an apology because the Amsterdam situation is very, very different from many places in the world. There's a lot of support, there's a lot of openness. So don't hit me when I'm finished. It's not my fault, but I'm part of a system that is very open to arts and culture. Here we go. I work in Amsterdam, a city where the government believes that arts, education, creativity, design thinking, critical thinking, and 21st century skills have social and economical value. So it's not just for the children that they have a more well-established, round education, but it's also very much about the fact that all these skills help to have a good workforce. And to, I like your dress. And to have companies come in, startups have happened to Amsterdam, big international companies come, and there's a very well-skilled workforce. So part of it is just economics, as the Dutch are. This is how the city looks like. Some of it, there's the beautiful canals, there's this 17th century inner city area, and there's these large public arts buildings. So the city really invests in art and culture, but also in access for children. It's not the biggest city in the world, around 1 million inhabitants, so it's in many countries it's just that's a middle village, but it's the biggest city in the Netherlands, I know, I'm embarrassed. And there's people from all over the world living there. That's very specific to Amsterdam, many other cities. But on this small scale, it's interesting to see how many different ethnicities live in the city. And then the cultural institutions, it's getting more and more embarrassing. We have more than 40 museums, 40 theaters, there's thousands of artists working there. And the subsidy for these institutions is at least 150 million a year. And then we don't talk about all the private funds and the charitable organizations that also give money for exhibitions, for buildings. But here we go. How do they reach the schools? They are, in that sense, no different from many other places in the world. It's difficult. Here we come in. For the last 18 years, we've been working to combine schools and arts education organizations. And our mission is to connect every young person, most young persons, to arts and cultures. And these are our key indicators. At this moment, we work for about 79% of the schools in Amsterdam. Nearly 100%, it's almost like a Russian figure, but it's true in this case. We really work for most of the schools. We provide transportation. We actually have contracts with bus companies, so we bring children from the door of the school to cultural institutions, because that's always a big problem in any city. We solve that by asking money from the city. We make allies out of schools and cultural institutions. We bring them together. We make communities from them. We provide a lot of teacher training and meetings, and we help to make policies in Amsterdam, but also nationally and sometimes internationally. I'm also asked in other places to come and talk about arts education. And we share the best practices that we have, but also our faults. And I really hope that you can share some things with me as well today, because there's something to learn from every place in the world. So this is our portfolio, like the graphic design of what we do and the different forms we do it in. So, art education and arts and heritage education. We have the same issue everywhere. The schools are busy. We don't have enough teachers. And a lot of teachers don't really support arts. And then there's the art educators who work at the museums or at the big institutions. There are probably a few here. Can I see anyone who works for a museum or a theater today? Ha! Sometimes you guys are the enemy, because you don't know or you don't feel comfortable to adapt your program to specific schools or to specific children or to children that are less versed in the linguistics of your country. And most of you don't go to school and see how it works in school, how the dynamics are in the school. And you don't realize the enormous amount of work it takes for a teacher to put all those kids together, get parents to come with them, go to an institution, do the program, come back, losing almost a whole day, and then all the organization around it. It's a lot of work to go for a school to a cultural institution. So I guess a lot of you don't realize how much work it is, unless if you have kids and you're one of the parents who goes along to one of the visits. And then many art educators don't feel supported by the organization because the kids don't bring in the money. So your director is saying, do you have to spend all this time with the schools? We all have the same issue there. And then there's the artists. There's thousands of people who work in the schools as artists, but they often are underpaid or don't feel well paid, and they're not a real part of the team. Same problem we have. And then there's parents. Who needs parents? Okay, they make kids, but they often don't support arts education. They want their kids just to learn. And critical thinking, especially from a lot of ethnicities, people don't like if their kids are critical or verbal. They just have to obey. So there are these issues that we all have and we all work with. So what do? We know that teachers and heads of schools are our most important ally in the arts and the arts education. So we put a lot of time and effort in making them our friends. My team, we visit all the schools in the city. We call them, we visit them, we talk to them. And yes, I don't see the gentleman who had the questions before, but everybody who works for us has either a background in arts or has done teacher academy, and most of us have both. Even the person who does my agenda is a psychologist and a remedial teacher. She doesn't want to work in the school anymore, but that's another matter. So we really try to work with the teachers and make them feel important. We organize a lot of cultural events for teachers. We take them to theaters, we take them to plays, we pick up the bill, and we ask them to donate their time and feel, again, how interesting it is to go somewhere and have real arts education as a personal experience. So, for us, critical thinking is a way of life. We constantly take a step back and rethink what we do. We use facts, imagination, I'm losing my voice, different viewpoints, and we step away from things even if we like doing them. That's another thing. You have to sometimes kill your darlings. And we also always keep our targets in mind because we do things to aim something, not just for the fun of it. So we always think about what is the aim that we're trying to achieve with this critical thinking. What's our biggest enemy? What do you think? Of course. We always do it this way. The little figure pulling its hair is me, because it happens in organizations. We've been living for 18 years. And so some of my colleagues say, oh, but we've always done it like this. And I get really upset. I'm like, that's not a reason to do it again. Let's step away and see if we can do things differently. We all have this same pitfall. It's also my problem. But we also work with real facts. Like the film I showed you when we just started was actually children with special needs going to a museum. And the fact was, the schools were telling us, our kids never get to go to a museum. And we have children that walk, we have children that use wheelchairs to move around. If we do something, we can never combine them. That's a fact. And so we stepped back and we said, there must be a solution. And in this case, we really looked at things like, so transportation is one, but also the willingness of museums. So we sat down and we looked at all the different angles for this issue, and museums were one part of it, because museums are often too full. And we realized that kids in a wheelchair have about this view. Could you get up? Would you mind getting up? Turn around. So the kids get to see our butts. And not the painting. So we talked to the museums about this. We want the kids to come, you want them to come. It means you have to empty your rooms a little more. So the Rijksmuseum did that, but also told us we lose money the moment we do that. We have, they have sort of figured out how many people you can put in a room and how much a square meter brings up every day. And in this case, they had to open this up. And we talked to the bus company. We said, okay, transportation is an issue. We want kids who walk and who are in a wheelchair to be in the same bus. And then the transportation company said, okay, we will work with you and we will change 3 buses. We will take some seats out, use the elevator, and it means these kids can go together. It doesn't happen often. But we posed a problem with them. We made it a joint problem, and that's one of the things of critical thinking. So you think of things as a collective, and everybody has a say. So this happened, and actually in this case, the kids got to go to the museum, and the bus company kept the buses like this, so it can be used also for other things with special needs, which also for them was a new way of thinking about it. So, every problem has a solution. And now it's your turn. This. I guess most of you are familiar with this, but you look at it again. Most of the development of a child is done before the age of 5. So what does it mean for us as parents? Every time we didn't work with them, let them sit behind a computer. I just want you guys to just, in pairs of 2, for a moment, think about what do you do as an artist or as an institution, and think about this, and use critical thinking. What could you change? What would you want to do differently with this fact in mind, that you know you have the largest impact in your whole life with these little kids up to 5 years? I'm just going to take a couple of minutes. Could you just, all of you, turn to each other and just talk about it? You too. I'm just going to be quiet. A couple of minutes. What can you do differently, knowing this? Okay, I have to pull you out of this. I saw most people talking, a few didn't. I know who was not talking. I won't bother those, I'm not that mean. But who wants to just volunteer a couple? What did you realize? I'm going to ask, can I ask you with the black dress?
We need to educate personnel in kindergartens. So we both 3 of us, we are working at Academy of Fine Arts. And so we were thinking, firstly, that we need to educate our students. Then we moved backwards to teachers. Then we moved backwards to kindergartens. So that's the conclusion.
Thank you. Anyone else who wants to say something about this? What did you think of? Just stick up a hand and I'll run to you. Yeah.
I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters, in the age of 5. This was nice. What are you going to do with them? In the age of 5, I was the 5th, and I have 5 brothers and sisters. So the symbolic of the age and the symbolic of my family.
Lots of 5s in your life, I get that. So actually we came to the same conclusion as you. We said, it means we have to do something around kindergartens. And we have to talk to the institutions if there are even programs for young kids like that. And we went to the municipality and we said, I know it's not part of our assignment, but we're going to do kindergartens as well. And so we're starting that now. So yeah. Critical thinking. During COVID, it was a completely different situation. Everything had to shut down. Museums, schools, universities, theater. We all went through a really steep learning curve, and most of us embraced digital life. But a lot of it was not critical thinking, but impulse-driven. Also, the government was impulse-driven. They didn't really do any real critical thinking. They just shut everything down. Instead of really thinking, what's going to happen? What can we do? What are real solutions? And not just shutting down public life, because it changed so many things for young people not to be able to see each other. We also saw that small theaters and many dance companies said, you know, this is not our medium. What we do is not, we cannot bring that onto a digital system unless we throw a lot of money onto it. And so in a way, that's also critical thinking and saying, you know, I'm going to take a step back. We can jump on this wagon, but we can also decide this is not what we do. Of course, universities were already much better in e-learning, but for schools it was very difficult. And you see, again, that if you would have stepped back and really thought, what is what we can do, there might have been different choices. This last week I was at a conference, and Catherine Devine was talking about digital solutions for museums. And she made it really clear again. She said digital is additive. It allows you to do something you cannot do, but it doesn't replace the physical world. And I think there's a lot we can benefit from using digital applications for museums and heritage collections. But it's really about thinking what you want to be and what you want to do. Don't try to replace the effect of standing in front of Van Gogh, because that's not something, but you can go into it. You can do a different thing. And there, critical thinking is really important to use your money as well as you can. She said it expands your reach and it provides a deeper engagement. It's not the same, but it's different, but it can benefit a lot. But think before you do. We did something else. We went back to our core. On the one hand, we embraced a digital life. Everything we could find about arts programs that were digitalized, we put on a platform so schools could use it from the whole country. And we also went back to our core, and that's connect kids with arts education. So one of the things we did is we were just starting a pilot for arts educators, for artists to work in schools. And we said to the government, we're not going to stop this. We're going to have these people come and work in the schools. That does two things. It will help the teachers who are really slumped by having to teach both a small group in the school and the others digitally. And it will make sure that art becomes content of the teaching, of the e-learning. And it worked amazingly. There were about 100 schools who had extra teachers, arts teachers, come in during the lockdown. And they both worked digitally. But we also thought of a system where we could send things to parents or have them pick things up. Scissors, glue, paper. Because there's another thing that we see during COVID. Kids were hiding behind their screens. And a lot of the things that kids learn when they're young, we go back to that up to 4 or 5, is this dexterity with their hands. And we were losing that. So we said, we have to do both things. Even if you do e-learning, send parents stuff so they can do things at home. And we also thought of how you could do very simple tests with sugar and fuzzy water and just blow up the kitchen. But again, it makes kids use the screen, but also use their hands. We talked with institutions and said, why can't we do walks? We're allowed to walk. So some of the museums worked with us and did heritage walks through the city, where parents could do it or schools could do it, but at least they kept being engaged with their group. Another thing we did is we made our own talk show. We made talk shows that were still allowed, and we did digital meetups after that with teachers, so they could still connect and talk to each other. And in the workshop, we would ask artists to come and talk about their practice and what they would mean for the schools. And we got connected to this guy. It's a Moroccan guy who started a whole network of after-school care where kids get extra lessons. And because it wasn't formal schooling, he was allowed to be open. And so, again, we thought, what can we do with him? Because they had never used arts in education. And we also took a step back and he said, okay, you're allowed to do this because you're not a school. How about all these theaters that are closed, but for educational purposes they can be open? So we made a connection. And that meant that the after-school care could go to big, beautiful halls, have more kids in, and still be corona safe because there was enough space. And now he's our new best friend because he's throughout the whole city and he's also expanding to other cities, and arts and culture are now a fixed part of their curriculum. It never was. And without corona, he wouldn't have been our new best friend. So it's interesting to see how you can, again, take a step back and think, what's my core mission? What is a different way to get what I'm paid for, to whatever, talk to parents or whatever your mission is. If you step back and think about how you can reach it without doing what you always did, you might come up with different solutions. In my organization, it really made us reinvent our way of working. We became more of a collective. I was still the boss. I can be really bossy sometimes, but I also had to take a step back. And I said, we're making new teams. For everything we want to think about, we make new teams, and they would do walks together and talk. They would have meetings online. But for everything that we needed a solution for, like how do we work with after-school care, they came up with the solutions, their own critical thinking, and they would come up with a solution and show me how they would go and do it. And there was actually nothing I had to say no to, because the moment you give people more liberty, more freedom, their mind starts to flow. So we were lucky in that sense. And actually this working as a collective, and I'm going slowly towards the end of my talk, my 20 whole minutes, this working as a collective has become a movement in arts education, but also in heritage. Everybody, I think, has heard of the Documenta, which is in Kassel. And for the first time, they didn't get a whole bunch of well-paid curators to pick individual artists from all over the world. They went to a group of artists who worked together from Indonesia and gave them the opportunity to pick whoever they wanted to fill the exhibition with. 100 days in Kassel. And it was amazing because they picked people who they would have not picked. They picked collectives from all over the world, people who would have never been part of a big art exhibition. But also here you have WHW, also a collective of women who work together as curators. And you see this starting all over the world. There is this, let's say, liberty that exists. The moment you work with a group of people, critical thinking starts. Because everybody has an opinion, and the more people from different backgrounds you bring to the table, the more critical, but also the more solution aimed your group is going to be. And there's a small group up there, the Black Archives, which was a couple of kids who said there's no archives of people of color in the Netherlands. And they just started in a little room, and now they've grown out to be quite an important force. Again, working as a collective and being radically critical, and also critical thinking, both things. So this is one of the ways in Documenta people sort of explained how they're working. And it has all these things combined: learn from friends, knowledge sharing, artistic conversation, speculative, let your mind blow. So this whole thing of critical thinking is really about exchanging ideas with an aim, not just exchanging, but thinking about something you want to solve or you want to change. We also see that it changes the position of like female representation, because there's a critical thinking and there's a collective, and if it's from different people, from women and men from different backgrounds, you start to see a shift in what the presentation is, because women bring to the table that they miss female artists. And also there's gender issues that usually are not addressed. I'm chairman of an organization called Museums Acknowledge Color. But color is not about my skin color only. It's also about how do you address gender, how do you address different narratives. And again, we worked with a lot of museums over the last year, about 40 museums. And in this case, this is a maritime museum. And for the first time, they used their, oh, you can't see it, their beautiful old paintings of these men who were fighting. And they combined it with a female photographer who sort of cross-dressed and made it into a different narrative. It was the first time for this museum to do this and to be, you know, happy about it. They were proud of the fact that they could change the way they are looked at. So, this is the end for me. Critical thinking. Lots of stuff. Safe place, respect, less or no hierarchy. I had to step back as a boss and let other people make the decisions. There's new connections, new combinations, and it's effective because we still attain our goals, but not in the way that I would have thought if I would have been the only person making the decision. So curiosity, like any kid has. This one's 4, so he's in that age group, I can still influence him. Creativity, no hierarchy, openness. These are the key words for, creative thinking, critical thinking, and just simply for happiness, I think. That's it for me. Any questions? Nobody wants to shout at me or just say, no. Come on.
Now?
No questions?
No, there are.
Oh, good.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Aneta. I'm coming from a kind of minority political and cultural background with my colleagues, Serbian National Council.
Yes.
And I was listening to you and all of you carefully, very thankful for some thoughts and for some good practices and obviously good systems. And I have like 2 questions or suggestions. This 4C that you were speaking this day about, they are all, for me, all of these 4C are connected with the question of care, which probably should be 5th C, and the question of risk. And I'm not sure what to think about. I'm trying to stay open, but I think that there is like a shaming of taking the risk in our societies. And the question of care, collaboration, creative, especially critical thinking, and creativity especially, is a question of taking a risk. And I'm not sure that the grown-ups, either parents or people in schools, or curators especially, I'm so sorry for this especially, are trying to even reach this question, how to teach our kids to take that tree, to take that risk, to cuddle a dog, or to do anything that is somehow scaring them. And these 4C are in some societies like really huge risk to take, especially in this alienated time, especially after COVID. So maybe this question of care, I suppose you have read the Boris Groys's philosophy of care, and this question of care would be probably something to add in this 4C. And just your thoughts, or all of you thoughts about this. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm here only to talk about the experience we have in Amsterdam, so it should be one of the other ones to give an answer to that. Who would like to address that? I have to address it?
Okay.
Of course, there's in any society the fear to fail. I mean, we know this. What we actually saw that during COVID, some of these barriers fell away. I mean, there was a lot to learn, like I would say, from the pharmaceutical industry, who had to take enormous risks because within a very short time, they had to produce a cure, or at least a serum against COVID. So what you see, if there's a lot of pressure from whichever form, people are more open to find a new way of doing things. This is what we saw. I mean, I've never seen the palace on the dam, which is officially also the house of the king and the queen, say, okay, we'll do a tour in the area. So what I realized is if there's a lot of pressure, sometimes things move. But the fear of failing is big in any society, of course. And I understand that if there's no support system, if you feel you're the lone wolf in a school, that makes it even bigger. So what we do in our work is really try to find these teachers who are positive about arts and help them to give the same feeling to other teachers so they're not alone. If we work with a school, we make it a point we also work with the head teacher. Otherwise, the teacher is not supported. So again, we are in a system where there's more openness and it's easier, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Thanks, Peggy. Just to answer or to respond to your comment, in our organization, we were working with makers, and I use the word failure. Let's try something out and it's okay to fail. Museums don't like to fail. It doesn't look good for their trustees, it doesn't look good in their reports. So I went back to one of our local Irish makers and I said, gosh, they want to shut this down. They don't want us to work with makers for a particular project. And he said, change your word, change your terminology. Say you're going to experiment and prototype and explore. So I came back and said, we're going to experiment, prototype and explore. I said, okay. It was as simple as that. So the mindset, the fear of failure, from all of us, it doesn't sound great. But for makers, it's okay. For scientists, it's okay. But for museums, it's not. For teachers, probably not either. Because you associate, you have 0% in your exam, you have failed, you are a failure. Whereas if you say, okay, let's try again and try again until we succeed. And it's okay if something doesn't work out, because the next time you can explore something differently. And that's the way I've had to change. I've had to go back out and consult the non-museum
It had
people.
to be the concept.
The concept,
concept of failure, and then it's going to pass right?
Anyone else who would like to say something or add something? Oh yeah, the microphone's over there.
Hello, my name
Hi.
is Sylvia.
Hi, Sylvia.
I work in a museum, and I'm asking you about your project that you mentioned, that you are going to explore how to work with kindergarten children. You are starting this new project. Can you tell me more about it? Some examples?
Sure. Yes. So we had no knowledge about this. We also were very clear about this. We don't know how it works with young kids, but we thought it was important to find out how that would work. So what we did is we contacted some of the boards that have and organizations that have kindergartens, and we said, would you be willing, here we go, to experiment with us and see what the needs are? So the first thing we did is we went to kindergartens and said, what would you like the children to experience? What would you like them to feel and to see? And so we did that. We had a couple of talks. We called the municipality. We said, we think it's important. And then the city said, oh, okay, because we fund them. We're having a seminar soon enough. Do you want to come and talk? And we said, we will come and talk, but again, saying we don't know yet what you need, but let us know. And so there were 2 or 3 organizations with several kindergartens who came up to us and said, we would like to do this experiment with you. And what we did firstly is we went to see how many organizations and which organizations had a good record in working with young kids. So there were a couple of theaters and there was a couple of music organizations. So we asked them to make a program. We paid for it. We had the children go there. And then we went back to the kindergartens and we talked to the teachers how they felt it infected the children and how they liked it. And so as a result, there are now like 2 or 3 theaters that have young kids programs and 2 music organizations who are specialized in that. And we bring them together with the kindergartens. And we pick up part of the bill of the work. But again, it's not something, you know, like we say, hey, we know something, because we don't. And also we allow ourselves to be open about this. We don't know it, but we think it's important because we know that this young age, something happens. I heard somebody here say they're like a sponge. And so I would like that sponge to be filled with beautiful things and not dirty water. So what can we do? So this is how we approach. So it takes us like half a year before we really do something, but we take the steps.
Thank you.
Yeah. No? Yeah, that's it. Well, thank you, guys. And if anybody wants to talk to me or email me, it's very simple. My first and my last name @me.com. And, you know, just let me know and I'll think with you. I love critical thinking.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. So, but we continue talking. We are just waiting our chefs, so don't worry about the lunch, I promise. Yeah, so they are on the way. So, and it fits perfectly because we lost like 20 minutes or something. We haven't lost, we got it actually. Let's look at this way. So I have 2 Croatian experts, coming. And I'm very happy because we like bringing international people in Croatia, but we also like inviting and motivating people from our country. So we don't go on, going to do now Adobe Flash Player installation, but we have your presentation. So I saw someone, I think it's a good idea that you have sunglasses to watch the presentation. So if you have sunglasses, feel free to put it, because you might see it much clearer,
Može biti preko cijelog ekrana.
Čekaj. Opa. Je, može. Čekaj. Ovo ću ti maknuti. Trebalo bi biti tu. Okay. I samo okay. Okay.
Hvala. Hi everybody. So first let us introduce myself. My name is Jelena, this is Ida. We are co-founders of Association for Promotion of Visual Culture, OPA. We started the association in 2009, mostly out of frustration. So all 4 of us are in our education teachers of art. My colleagues have all worked in schools for many, many years. I have worked in publishing and also in school, in NGOs, in education. And we wanted, through this organization, we wanted to stop complaining and start acting more, start doing projects that, in our opinion, bring some kind of positive change in art education in Croatia. So this presentation will be a short overview of some of our projects, and in the end, some of the, let's call it, spin-off projects and future projects.
Okay. So, as Jelena said, we start out of frustration and we wanted to change something. Well, first we wanted to change this. I hope you see this picture good enough. Maybe it's better not. But that's our reality. That's how it looks like, not only architecture, but most of our visual surroundings. And so we wanted to give our effort to change something like that, and we decide, okay, we have to start from the field where we are, and that's the schools, and we wanted to change something systematically, because most of the kids I mean not most, all of the kids are in a primary school, and that's the only place where all of them are there. So we have to address to them, and we have to start there. And we know that that process is a long-term process, and maybe we won't even see our results, but never mind, we have to start. So we decided to change something, do something, and we come from this fact that we have a very small amount of visual education in a school. Well, you can see this is like 4% that we teach the art, and that's how many things we actually see, and most of the information we have visually. So what we start to do about it? We wanted to get more hours of lecture in school. That was beginning of our fight, but we also realized that the way how the artists teach is not good. And first we have to change that, and then maybe we can get more, more time. Because if we don't change the way how the perception of art education, we can't get any change. So we have to start again from ourselves, we have to start from the school, and that's what we wanted to change. It's the curriculum, I mean the document, how we teach art, to give the support of the teacher to the teacher, because we all know that there are some brilliant teachers that they teach art on a very good way, who always wanted to think kids how to think, how to develop their creativity, how to think critically, and all those beautiful things that we are talking about today. But actually, that's their goodwill. So we can't rely on that. So we have to support them to the documents, and we have to make the documents that will move all other teachers to do that way, and that we can help them through the systematical education. So we wanted to explore what we wanted to do, so we organized a lot of events, action, and many things, which we can see what were the subjects that we start from. That was architecture, design, video, photo, all things that we teach in a school, let's say, but on a wrong way, only from some formal perspective, not through with critical thinking. So we wanted to explore how to do that, how to change it. And first we wanted to try in some not institutional way, so that we have freedom to explore. So I will just now present one of our projects, just to see the system that we use. So we connect with lots of organizations, with Society of Architecture, with university, I mean the Faculty of Architecture, and with lots of schools, and with lots of architects, to create together some workshop for kids. So we did lots of them. I don't know, it lasted like 10 years. So we went through whole Croatia and did like 50, 70 workshops, I don't know. And every time we tried something new, because we wanted to explore what can we do to make kids think about their surroundings, how to realize how it's important in everyday lives, and how can they do something small. I mean, these, give me another one. This one, that was from one workshop that they really put some plants in a city center. Some small steps to make a big change in the future. That was the main. So we realized some things, how to do it, and then the idea was how to implement it in a system, how to do it, to make it reality, everyday reality. And that was, here are some photos from our project. And then this comes, I mean, all from people from Croatia probably know what it was, but that was the try to reform the system, really, in a way of critical thinking, creativity, and lots of other beautiful stuff. Well, it we didn't succeed. But what we succeed, we change our curriculum for many subjects, but now I'll talk only about art because we took a part of it. So we were in a position to put all things we find out through our work, to put it in a curriculum so that we have opportunity to do it now more systematically or to teach teachers how to do it. So that's
just before you start this, I would just like to say that that is you and Goga and the rest of the people involved in the curriculum were actually invited to the task groups exactly because of our work in OPA. And because we did a lot of experimentation and because we always communicated through the media and always shouted, we need more classes, we need better classes. And when the time came to do the new curriculum, then they got the opportunity to change it.
You mean the new national curriculum?
Yeah, the new national, yeah. Yes.
Yes. That's what I'm going to show you today. That's the principle or new national curriculum that is now valid and that is taught in schools. So that's just well, what we did. We organized our art subject through 3 fields. One is called creativity and productivity. One is called critical thinking and experience, and the third one is art in a context. So that was important that we in a document say, okay, that's what we do, that's what's important, and that's what our document will be about. So, and that's how we're gonna teach kids, and that's what we're gonna stress out for important. So that's all written there, and it's important. Next one. Okay, here you can see those circles down there. First 3 circles is a primary school, and another 2 secondary school. So this red one, that's our first domain. That's creativity and productivity. As we can see, we always do practical work because kids, when they do something practical, then they learn better. But always have in mind that through that they have to think critically about their work, about their surroundings. And the third one, this C1, art in a context, that they just have to be aware that they live in art for beginning in architecture. I mean, it should be art, but it's not always. And they are surrounded with something visual and something what can be better through artwork. And that's always now in our art teaching. It's inside, it's written, and it's a national curriculum. And then in secondary school, because there is art history and it's much more theory, they do much more on this critical thinking. That's the core, how they do. And another thing that is very important, it's that we change the system. We put some themes in a curriculum that stress out that we always critically think about subjects and that we organized teaching around some themes that are very important. Like in a primary school, it's much smaller it took like, I don't know, 6 or 7 hours to do one theme, but in the secondary school that was even bigger change. They put for each year of teaching another theme that we organize all around that. For first class, it's art and a man. So we start from ourselves. I mean, kids start from that, and they teach art from that. They have discussions, and everything is organized that way. So it's a very important change in thinking creatively and critically. So, well, now that's in a document. And it's a big change. We had the teachers who did that way before, and we have teachers who didn't do that way, but maybe feel they should, but didn't have the support, and they need education. So as I said in the beginning, it's a very long process. So now we are working on education of educators. Now I work in the Academy of Fine Art. I teach the methodology of teaching art. So I work with the educators who will be very soon in the school, and they all know why it's so important. They can't go after, they can't finish the school, do education without knowing that. So that's how we do, and that's how we do in the classrooms now when we are all together. So we change everything when we have opportunity. So we also do classes in the museum. So we organize that, so they learn, they have to do it that way, go out. And but we also work with our teachers who are willing to learn something, and so it's very, very important, and that's what we as association have as our main goal, actually.
So now I will show. Oh, we have. Oh, okay. I'll scroll this. I don't know why it's here. Okay, I'll show you two Erasmus Plus projects, which are not actually from OPA, but because I, as a part of OPA, worked in Croatian Association of Fine Artists who did the projects. I think that they are did in our principles and concepts, so I will introduce them to you now. One of the projects is Artists for Art Education, which actually just got European Award for Innovative Teaching this year. And it's a project which has been, which is in its 8th year of Erasmus, where we take 10 or 20 students of art high schools in Croatia each year, from each school, 10 or 20, and we take them for 2 weeks to mentorships in art studios abroad. So they do 2 weeks with professional artists as their mentors, and they produce their own work, which are exhibited in exhibition at the final day of mobility. And this is their first experience outside school and outside like protective glass of their classrooms, because none of the school have such mentorship programs, and they are all in their final year, and they don't know how you can live from your work. How is it every day in a art studio, or what do you have to do to produce professional work? They don't know that. So this is their first experience. For now, there is around 400 students that have gone through the program, and I think around 60 teachers. The second, this is my pet project. It's in its second year of Erasmus. It's art to business. So after very close collaboration with Croatian Art School, art schools, we figured that there is no business education for future artists. So they actually go, it's obrtnička škola, how do you say? It's a vocational school, and there's final year, and they don't know what the contract is. They don't know how to pay taxes. They don't know how to, if they can work by themselves, or they have to get employed. They don't know how to market themselves. Nothing. So now we are writing a new curriculum for art schools in Slovenia and Croatia at first, but we hope that other countries like Lithuania, which also we have partners from Lithuania, will take it on, which will cover 3 important themes, so entrepreneurial skills, communicational and IT skills, and also legal and fiscal themes, for which are all not general but specifically tailored to artists. So that's why I'm putting these 2 projects together with OPA. Either they're not our projects, but I think they work good in all the things that we've done before and will do in the future. And in the future, we will do a collaboration with the Center for Culture and Information, Maksimir, which has invited us. They want to have a new concept of the center. They want to be more engaged with the needs of the community. So they invited us to propose the series of workshops, and we proposed these 2. Will you do one and I can do the other? So one is called Maxikvart and the other is called I, the Citizen of Zagreb in 2033.
Okay, so that's so we start from what we did before, as I said, all these topics, and we offer something from that, our experience, but also wanted all those subjects from architecture and urbanism and let's say conscious living, something like that. We wanted to offer them because it's important anyway, and we also wanted to explore something new, because we are very willing that we don't know everything, we have to learn every day, and the concept of curriculum is anyway something that is changeable and it has to be changeable. So it's also very important for us that we can do those subjects, those topics with kids and try and start something new, and that it's important that we start from this specific part of the city and to see what are their needs and how we're going to develop that in further.
Yeah, the center decided to do an Google form questionnaire for the whole neighborhood, and this is now in process, but we kind of thought in advance and offered that our workshops will be, as Ida said, urbanism, architecture, visual art and design, and sustainable development, but also waste management, multicultural, and future jobs. And we hope that it will be a long-term relationship with the center for at least next 4 years. And actually that's it for us. We can answer any of your questions.
Have to wait a little bit more. The chefs are stuck in a traffic jam, so I apologize for this. But first of all, I want to thank you to both of you because you were many times the example of practice that we had to within different projects to put. Because you really did a major stone work with actually coming into the curriculum area with something which was something that is many people are desire. It's a desire, and you actually made it, and it's a result of several years of work, and it's hard work, it's a lot of patience, but you both have experiences and you teach in the school and you were teaching in the school, so you are from the bottom up, let's say, of this sector going up to the formal areas. Yeah, so thank you very much for that. And are there any questions? Do we want to open up a little area or the field discussing about that, especially in the context of the visual arts? Yes, now are we or we can talk afterwards. Just, yeah.
While we waiting for the food or...
Yeah.
I would like to know, how did you get... I find it very interesting, and I have to say huge kudos for getting actually the government to listen to you and actually getting you involved in the curricular change, because we all know that's not an easy task. But I would very much like to know, how do you get the teachers to come and work with you? Do you get any support from the government? Is there any funding available? How do you get schools to actually get them to be allowed to do the programs with you? Because that's also, you know, schools are so rigid in their times. So I would be very keen to know.
Okay. Well, we worked in the school, I mean, most of us. So we start with our colleagues. So they found a way in their schools. How they're going to do it? Through their regular classes. Or that was our teachers, or teachers of in first 4 years. So in their classes, or maybe in some activities that they have. So those were the teachers who are willing to try something new, who are willing to volunteer, and then the schools were open, so they didn't have to pay anything. So we also use resources that we have. And so we start on that very, very volunteering base. So we didn't start, we do it all the time in volunteering base.
Yeah, exactly. So the funding is, well, it doesn't exist. And every contact we have is actually personal contact. We did a lot, all the architects that put in the work do it for free. We collaborate with stronger organizations that have some financial support, like Society of Architects, like Museum of Contemporary Art. So they finance, for example, all the materials and everything, but we do it for free. Lots of our colleagues think that we are paid, but we are, and no, we don't get paid. And
I'm not even so keen to know about the money all that much. I'm more keen because it seems very structured, very well organized. You are able to continue this work for years. It's not a project that happens and then expires very quickly. There seemed to be a real change.
Yeah, because it is our volunteering, but all of us have jobs that are in the same field as this. So we are doing this parallel and including with our current jobs mostly. We have our ups and downs. We have years where we are a lot less active. For example, when my colleagues were involved in the curriculum, then the association work fell a lot, but higher cause, yeah. Also, we are joking that in this period we had like 5 more kids and changed 5 jobs in altogether, and that's also an issue sometimes, but we are flexible, and there is an organizational structure for the project, and we kind of do it when we can and don't force ourselves. So it's long term, we know it's long term. Even if we have a down period, we know it's not the end, that we'll pick up when we have the energy. For example, we had a break during COVID of teacher training, but we'll probably do it again next year. Nothing is pressuring us, We are the only body who has expected somebody from us are ourselves. Nobody else is expecting anything from us.
And I just want to say that this curriculum moment was luck also, that was open, that opportunity in that moment, and that we were able then to join according to all of that what we did, and that the person who were leading that curriculum changes was the men who were open to people who wanted to do something for real.
Hello. Firstly, I have to say that I think you are doing a great job. We all know about you and your NGO. And I would like to ask you, is there maybe some project that is supporting a teacher from first to fourth grade and teachers from daycare in school? Because I think there is good support for art teachers for higher grades, but maybe not so much in lower grades, because I see many teachers who are not so good in art teaching and don't really know what they're doing, and I think they need support. Do you have some project about that, maybe?
Ida will tell you about the curriculum part, and I know that every time we did the teaching training seminars, there were quite a lot of teachers from first to fourth grade of primary school. Could there be more? Probably. We sent the invites, but as I said in the previous, we do as we can, and cannot we cannot do all the time and do real the work of the agency for the education, and we cannot do their work, but they sometimes invite us, so it's we have kind of a relationship with them, so they sometimes invite us and they support the seminars we organize, but of course there are a lot more teachers from first to fourth grade. I think maybe some 15,000 of them in all Croatia, so it's a lot more people than from 5th to 8th.
Because many times, me as a lower grade teacher, I cannot apply for the education technically.
Yeah. When it's from the agency, it's a problem. When we organize it, then you can, of course, but we organize it when we can. So,
thank you.
And in a curriculum, we also did, of course, it was the whole from the first grade, and it's the same system in the whole curriculum. And I also took part in education for teachers from first to fourth grade through this School for Life, that was called, and so I took part in that education and really tried to go wherever I could in Croatia to do education for teachers. I mean, because we are very aware how it's important, and how that's the base. We know that, and we both did the textbooks for that, and during that period we really went through whole Croatia to do education, because then it was founded by publisher houses, so that was then, let's say, easier to organize, and we are really aware how it's important. So whatever agency for education call us, we are willing to do it. So as Jelena said, it's much more people. But okay, we'll have it in mind. Now I have some ideas how we can do it better. Thank you.
If that's it, thank you, and you can always talk to us. And we don't have a web page anymore, but we have a Facebook page, so you can always reach us.
I don't know what's happening, but I do know that lunch is on its way. So perhaps we're due to have a lunch break and then workshops. Everyone's got their workshops signed up for. There's one workshop with Joe, and unfortunately Joe is ill. So for those of you who've signed up with Joe on object-based learning, perhaps I think it's good for you to sign up for another one because Joe is sick today. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. I guess Debbie will make an announcement whenever Debbie resurfaces. I'm sure she's problem solving at the moment. She's handling lunch. Okay, thank you.